85% of MSPs say referrals are their number one source of new business. Most MSP owners hear that and think, good, I'm doing the right thing. I hear that and think that's an entire industry with no sales strategy. Referrals aren't a strategy. They are luck with a ceiling.
I'm Joe Rojas. I built and sold 3 MSPs.
I'm Jeff Loehr. I once called Brown Diamonds chocolate and made billions of dollars for my employer. And today, we're going to say something that's going to make a lot of MSP owners uncomfortable. Your referrals are killing your business. All right, let me explain what I mean. Referrals are great. Absolutely love referrals. You're going to get referrals for your entire business as long as you're doing a good job, right? A happy client sends you a prospect who already trusts you. It is a beautiful thing. You have a short sales cycle, high close rates, no marketing spend. What's not to love, Joe? Here's what's not to love. Don't you love when someone asks a question and then they answer the same question, all right? Hey, I'm not actually asking you a question. I already have an answer, so just stay quiet. So here's what's not to love, Joe. You can't control it.
Yeah.
You can't predict it. And if you can't control and you can't predict it, then you can't scale it. And you definitely can't build a business long-term, a business where you can leave for 30 days around it. So when we ask MSP owners, what is your growth plan for the next year? And they say referrals and word of mouth, what they're really saying is that I'm hoping my clients will do my selling for me. It's not a plan, it's a wish.
And I say this as someone who ran on referrals for years. All 3 of my MSP grew, and it felt organic. It felt sustainable. And for a while, it was. It is until you get to a certain point. But every single time, I hit the same wall. Somewhere between 20 and 40 clients, the referrals slowed down. Not because my clients were unhappy, because there's a natural limit to how many people any one client knows, and also that person needs an MSP. Like, they may know a bunch of people, but not everybody needs an MSP. So your personal network has a ceiling. Your client's network have a ceiling. And when you hit that, growth just stops. It just stops.
You know, and this is where it gets dangerous, because when the referrals slow down, most MSP owners don't build a sales engine. They do one of 2 things. Either they hire a salesperson and expect that person to generate all their leads. Look, we're not emphasizing this enough. I'm going to say it differently. Either they hire a salesperson and expect that person to generate all of their leads.
I
All
like
right, that's better, right?
That's it.
Then surprised when it doesn't work, because oh my gosh, everybody wants to do this. I'm just going to hire a sales guy. I don't know what I'm selling. I don't know who I'm selling it to. I don't know how I'm going to price it. I don't know what. I'm just going to hire somebody and magically
They're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out, because that's the whole
figure it
point of
out.
having a sales.
They're not
That they're going to know. They're going to know how to do it. That's why I hire sales.
So the other thing they do, you know, they accept that growth has plateaued, and they tell themselves, I'm at a comfortable size and I'm okay with you not growing. But the problem you're going to come into is what we talked about in the last episode, is the fragility of the system. What happens when people leave or start leaving? Because as we said in the last episode, it will happen.
So I did both of these things at different points. In my second MSP, I hired a salesperson and basically said, go find clients, go ye forth and find me some clients. I gave him no process, no target market, no framework. And he lasted for about 6 months. And I told myself, salespeople don't work. I'm gonna have to do everything myself. That wasn't true.
Yeah, and we've seen this so often with our members, and they come in and they hire, and we say, don't do it, and then they hire them, and then we're like coaching them for 6 months on how to manage a salesperson. They're like, yeah, they're not selling anything. We said, yeah, well, that's because you don't have a sales process.
My favorite is when we tell them not to do it, and they do it anyway. And they're like, I'm gonna make it work. I'm gonna show you. And then they come back 6 months later and they're like, you know, you were right. See, because what's true is that, at least the way it was for me, is that I didn't have a sales system for that salesperson to follow. I was asking to replicate the thing that I'd been doing on instinct, on relationships, on my reputation, and that is not transferable. It is not transferable. You cannot give it to another person. It doesn't work.
And that's the core problem. That's it right there. Because Referrals work because of you, your reputation, who you are, your relationships, your personal credibility, which means that referral based growth has all the same limitations as that owner dependent business because it's still dependent on you. It doesn't scale past you. And if something happens to you, the pipeline goes to zero. So we talked last time about what happens when 40% of your revenue disappears. Well, if referrals are your only growth engine and your biggest referral source dries up, then your pipeline doesn't slow down. It stopped. All right, so here's the reframe. Referrals aren't bad. We love referrals. I think I've already said that.
Yeah,
Say it again.
we love
They're
them.
wonderful. And there's strategies that you can put in place to encourage referrals. You should do that. Absolutely. But they can't be your only strategy. They're a bonus, they're an addition, they're one part of how you grow your business, but they're not the foundation. Or maybe a better way to say that is they are the foundation, but they're not they're not the structure,
Yeah.
right? Because everybody sort of starts with referrals. Everybody starts there, and that's a great place to start. But when you want to go beyond that, you need to move beyond referrals. So the question every MSP owner should be asking is, if my referrals stop tomorrow, how would I get my next client? If you don't have a clear answer to that question, you don't have a sales process. You have a referral dependency.
I'm Joe Rojas, and I had a referral dependency. and
It's
here's
not that
what
kind of
changed.
meeting.
And here's what changed for me, right? In my third MSP, I stopped treating sales like something that happens to me. And I started treating it like something that I build. And the difference was night and day. Night and day.
So let's talk a bit about what that actually looks like, because I bet most MSP owners think sales process means cold calling and being pushy. And if that's what sales means to you, I understand why you'd really rather rely on referrals, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a prescriptive approach. So think about how a doctor works. A doctor doesn't call you up and pitch you on surgery. You go to the doctor with a problem, the doctor asks questions, diagnoses the problem, and prescribes a treatment, and you follow the prescription because you trust the doctor's expertise. And what's important here is that you're going to a doctor for your specific problem. Like you go to a cardiologist, or you go to a pulmonologist, or you go to an ophthalmologist, just demonstrating my knowledge of medical fields. You're going to them, and they're going to advise you on their expertise. They're going to tell you what's wrong with you. And that's how MSP should work. You're not pitching, you're diagnosing. And in fact, you're going into the meeting with a solid understanding of what's wrong. You're not selling, you are prescribing.
Yeah. Because you are to the network what the doctor is to the body. You're an engineer who understands how to prescribe. And here's why that matters. When you're in referral mode, the prospects comes to you pre-sold. When you're in referral
Yeah.
mode, they come pre-sold. They are the trust that your customer has in you gets transferred to them, and they come pre-sold. They already trust you because their friend said to call you. So you never have to learn how to build trust from scratch. You never learn how to run a sales conversation with someone who doesn't know you yet, someone you have to build a relationship with. So when I switch to a prescriptive approach, the first thing I learn is that prospects don't want to be sold to. You don't want to be sold to. Think about it for yourself. So prospects, they don't want to be sold to, but they do want to be helped. They do want a way out of the situation that they're in right now. And if you walk into a meeting and you start with, let me tell you about our services. Let me tell you about DHCP. Let me tell you about cybersecurity.
Don't ever, never.
Their guard goes right up. But if you walk in and you say, tell me about your business, what's working? What's not working? What would make the biggest difference for you in the next 12 months? And when you talk like that, when you think about their future and you're listening, you're really listening, really dialed in, it changes everything.
And that's the shift from selling to prescribing. And even though we sort of use the doctor analogy here, because engineers don't prescribe, we do think of it as selling like an engineer, selling like a technical person. That's what a doctor is. They're a technical person. They're an engineer. They just work on the body. And so it's that kind of thinking. It's using your capabilities as a technical person, as an engineer, to your advantage in sales, because it's what you are good at, understanding problems and fixing the problems. You just have to let yourself do it. Right? You're technical problem solvers. You diagnose issues all day long. The sales conversation is the same skill applied to business conversation instead of a technical one.
And that's the genius right there. So I'm going to walk you through what a prescriptive sales conversation actually looks like. Because when I figured this out, it changed my close rate completely, and it felt natural, and it didn't feel like I was pushing or cajoling or forcing. It didn't even feel like I was selling, really. So step one is you just start with the problem. You don't open with your services. You open with the problem that your ideal client, I'm going to say that again, your ideal client. I'm going to say that one more time. Your ideal client faces. If you've done the positioning work from week 2, you know what that problem is. You know in advance. You name it. You describe it in their language. You watch them nod. For example, when I was selling to architecture firms, I opened with most architecture firms we work with are dealing with the same challenge. Your teams are running massive project files on networks that weren't built for it. Deadlines are tight, and when the technology slows down or goes down, it costs you real money. And is that something you're experiencing right now? And 9 times out of 10, the reality is 10 times out of 10, because this was 2007. They said yes.
Sometimes there is somebody out there who's not your client.
They
right? I mean, it does happen with somebody who's, no, I don't have that
Your
problem.
client,
But
yeah.
then they're not your client.
Then they're not your client. But 9 times out of 10, they said yes. Now I'm not a salesperson. I'm someone who understands their problem. Step 2 is you have to make the problem real. So once they've acknowledged the problem, you help them understand the cost of not solving it. You don't do it with, there's a lot of people in the technical space that sell on FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You don't do it with fear tactics. You do it with real question. When was the last time a tech issue caused a project delay? What did it cost you? How often does it happen? They know the answers to these questions. Make it real for them. Don't tell them ghost stories. Don't scare them that way. Just ask them questions. You're not telling them that they have a problem. You're helping them quantify the problem. And when they hear themselves say, well, we lost a week of work on that project because of this network issue, they're the ones doing the selling. You're just listening. You're just hanging out.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it's often at this point. We actually call this accentuate. You're accentuating the problem, and this is the part that most MSP owners skip. But honestly, it's really where the sale is made.
Right
You
there.
know, once people have this feeling that, oh, I can talk to you about my problems and we get along and everything, then they've made the sale. They will make the sale for you. What MSPs like to do is skip straight to the solution and skip straight to what they do and say, well, here's what we offer, here's our price. But if you haven't helped the prospect feel the cost of the problem, if you haven't communicated the value, then your price will feel too high or not tied to anything, right? Because they're comparing it to zero, not the cost of doing nothing.
Which brings me to step 3, which is you have to describe the solution generically. And this part surprises everybody that I say it to. I say it to them and they would, what do you mean? I do. No, you don't do anything. You don't pitch your services yet. You're not talking about that. You describe what the solution would look like in general terms. What you need is a technology partner who understands the architecture industry, who can guarantee your project files are always accessible, and who proactively prevents the kind of issues that you've been talking about right now that cause these kinds of delays that have slowed your projects down in the past. And then
You can even take the technology partner out and you could just say, look, what you need is project files that are always accessible. You need speed in what you're delivering. You need to meet every deadline. Because when we say generic, we don't mean a generic solution. We mean that you're not a part of the solution. You want them to agree to what the solution is without ever involving you.
Because now they told you what they want. So you're not pushing anything. Let them agree with that description. Let them say yes. That's what we need. Now they've told you exactly what they want. So you're not pushing anything. They are there.
Even better, you're working with them on the problem. You've all identified the problem. Now you're talking about the solution and you're on the same side of the table.
And I
So
love
then what
that.
do you have to do, Joe?
I literally used to do that. I literally used to get up, walk around the other side of the table, and sit with a notepad and work on the problem with them. Because now you're literally on the same side of the table looking at the thing, looking at the solution. And then after you look at the solution and they agree that that's it, you can show the transformation, right? You can paint the picture of what it looks like after the problem is solved. Imagine your team never worries about network issues. Or what I like even better, we work with an architect down the road that never worries about network issues delaying the project. Every file is accessible.
And again, I would even take out the network
Right?
issues, right? I said, imagine you don't have project delays. Imagine your files open immediately. Imagine that they're accessible from everywhere. Because I know, like, as technical people, there's this desire to put it in terms of, hey, you're not going to have network issues. I'm going to tell you something. For those of us who are not technical people, we don't care about network issues.
You know
I don't
what?
care.
The reality
All
is,
I care is that I have access to stuff. Yeah, I don't care. Someone says you're not going to have network issues. I don't care. Even though I care about the result
I
of it,
know,
I
but
just don't care about the net.
the thing that you don't care about is not the network issue. The thing that you care about is having access to your file. And so when you
Right.
take that the technical language, see, I'm prone to that because I'm a technical guy. I'm prone to throwing that technical language about. So this is also a great time if you have a case study or a client who's experienced this transformation. This is where you share it, not as a testimonial, but as proof that the outcome is real,
I think this is important. It's not necessarily a testimonial. In fact, it doesn't even have to necessarily be your client. If they're not your client, don't claim they are.
Yeah.
But you just want to talk about that transformation so that they can connect with the transformation.
Yeah.
Because this is where the conversation shifts from do I need this to how do I get this? I want to be that. So now they said, oh yeah, I have the problem. Oh, I need that. That solution sounds great. Oh, I see how they can transform. Now it's like, oh, how can I get to that transformation? And that's where you come into, we said there had to be either 3 or 5 steps. So Joe, what's next?
Well, there's step 5. You have to present your offer. And now, and only now, you present what you do. Here's how we solve this for architecture firms. Here's what's included. Here's the investment. By this point, the price is not a shock. The price isn't even an issue anymore. It's an answer to a question they've been building toward the entire conversation. And here's the thing. This process works whether the prospect came from a referral or cold outreach. It works whether they know you or they don't know you. It's repeatable. It's trainable. You can hand this to a salesperson and they can follow it because it's a system. It's not a personality. It's not your referral network with its ceiling. It's not any of those things. It is a trainable process.
Alrighty. So the difference between a business that grows on luck and a business that grows on a system, referrals still come, great. Take them, but think of them as a bonus. Think of them as a part of your sales process, not the entire process. The engine is your prescriptive sales and prescriptive marketing process that you can run, that your team can run, and that generates new business predictably. So building this system is a part of implementing the scale program, and we measure it within the scale assessment, and it tells you whether or not you have been creating this prescriptive sales program and where you are in crafting that prescriptive sales program. So if you're tired of waiting for the phone to ring and hoping that one of your clients remembers you on Christmas Eve or whatever, this is the fix. So go check out the link in the description, go through the assessment, and then later we can chat about how you can bring prescriptive selling into your business.
Take the scale readiness assessment. It takes under 5 minutes and it gives you a clear picture. The link is also in the description, so you'll find it down there.
So thank you for watching. Leave us a comment. Tell us you love us or hate us. If this really resonates with you, subscribe. If it doesn't, subscribe your friend. And otherwise, we will
See you next time.